This video is sponsored by Nintendo. Paper! Across all our known universe, paper is the rarest material, only being found on one planet, Earth. I think I read that in an article once, that like wood, which paper's made of, is like more rare than diamonds in our observable universe. I can't cross-reference that. I'm not an expert on astral bodies, but I am an expert in role-playing games. Today, we're talking about Paper Mario, the Thousand-Year Door for Nintendo Switch. My good buddies over at Nintendo of America reached out to me, of all people, to review this title and spread the good word on its various features and enhancements. And my goodness, those features, they are varied, and they definitely are enhanced. And yet, not even in my wildest dreams could I imagine the lengths that these developers would go to lovingly improve on aspects of this title that I didn't even think needed improving. And frankly, I don't hear enough people talking about this. So allow me to explain to you how the best Mario RPG, in my opinion, became somehow even better. But first, we require proper context. Our game begins with Princess Peach spending a portion of her vacation touring a shady harbor, one rogue port. While browsing the local markets, Peach happens upon a magic treasure map. Then she proceeds to pen Mario to join her on her spelunking excursion. At some point in time, she is kidnapped. Kind of goes without saying, but thought I'd throw that in there. Paper Mario the Thousand-Year Door wastes no time introducing you to this amazing hub level. It has a gallows at its center. You find out right away that it's not a super friendly place. And I can count on one hand every Mario game with gallows in it. Because this is the only one. It's the only one that ever dared to do that. It's not the kindest place. Some of the people are prickly. They might call you nincompoop and do one of these at you, which is a fancy way of saying the atmosphere is heavy here. You can practically smell the brine of the sea at the port, and you can get a whiff of the stench of what appears to resemble my apartment. And while it's true some Super Mario staples such as a castle and a underground region are present here, for the vast majority of your playtime, you will experience levels and locales that resemble nothing else in the Super Mario catalog. No fire or ice levels to speak of. You gotta at least hand it to him for thinking outside of the box to that degree. I'm all for traditions, but Paper Mario the Thousand-Year Door does not rest on its laurels, and that extends to its combat system. Like its predecessor, Paper Mario for Nintendo 64, we have turn-based battles, where Mario and a partner character will perform time button presses for offense and defense to defeat whoever crosses them. But the combat has multiple dimensions in the Thousand-Year Door. Now the crowd watching your battle has a part to play as well. Some of them may heckle Mario by throwing random garbage at him, damaging him, or applying a nasty status effect. So not only must you be aware of your opponent, but the occasional disgruntled spectator. Inversely, if you perform action commands successfully, your audience will applaud you, giving you star power, a resource that allows you to use unique special moves to gain the upper hand in battle. In addition to performing guards during the enemy turn, you can also attempt a super guard, a move that requires accurate timing, but in exchange for negating all damage to Mario and even dealing some back to the opponent. As a guy that loves examining the unique combat systems of role-playing games, I was shocked how timeless Paper Mario the Thousand-Year Door's battle system felt. It had just the right level of depth, as a seasoned gamer would never get bored. But its new additions were explained so succinctly as to not overwhelm newcomers. Not to mention, you get into the main game's feedback loop 30 minutes in. That is very rare as far as role-playing games go. And yes, I timed it exactly 30 minutes, depending on your reading comprehension level. My favorite interaction so far has been with Mario and Koops in the Rogueport sewers, when you are interacting with a small, diminutive character, and he's like, Are you gonna hurt me? You guys aren't bullies, are you? And you have the option to select, guess again, nerd. Just the idea that Mario would say that. You can pick that. And that option, if you do, you will be chastised by Koops. And he gets way too weird. He's like, Mario, you're not like this. What's gotten into you? You shouldn't have said that. Do better. It's too real. And if you're one to pick the funny options when given the chance in role-playing games, only to be disappointed that there's no actual change in the story or the reactions of the character, this game never does that. This game always has a joke when you say something silly or juvenile. But one of the game's best assets is the fact that this is a Mario game. You are most likely already familiar with Mario, Peach, and Toadsworth, and you might even have a good idea on how to dispatch some of the game's early enemies, which is a huge boon in onboarding new players who may not be familiar with the RPG genre. And from a narrative point of view, because the initial cast of characters are staples to the Mario series, your initial hours of play can be better spent exploring your partner's backstories, their relationships, their environments, and this title does this with such grace and at such a brisk pace. Before you know it, the treasure hunt for the Crystal Stars is on with your horde of new allies. So if you've struggled to finish role-playing games in the past, I have you know this is most likely not going to be an issue this time around. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door does so much to get you to the finish line, especially in this version. It blew my mind. So if you've never played Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door before, this is the best time to do so. And I genuinely envy you that you will be playing the best version on your first go. And yes, this is the best version, no contest. It's not even close. In this modern gaming climate, it's not too uncommon for certain versions of re-releases to have an extensive pros and cons list, as not every feature makes the jump from console to console. Rather, refreshingly, if we did draft a similar list for Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door on Nintendo Switch, well, I think you'd find they didn't spare any expense. Sadly, these new features aren't exactly something best showcased in a video game trailer, so let me do the heavy lifting here and address every single change I came across in my playtime. 1. A completely rearranged soundtrack with remixed battles for every chapter in the game. You can even access the Nostalgic Tunes badge early on that lets you hear the old tracks once equipped. I never used it. I didn't need to. The new ones are just that good. There's also new character sound effects for when they speak. In the past, it was just like, static typewriter sound for many of the characters. Now there's a lot more variety. Obviously, your eyes are gonna be glued to the screen to read the text of who's talking, but now it's like, yeah, that's what, I kinda get how this guy sounds without any actual voice acting. Of course, there's a huge graphics overhaul. You cannot even compare the two anymore. The lighting they have added, every scene just pops. It's in your mind, you might think like, they didn't really change that much. But when you start seeing A-B comparisons, you're like, holy cow, they went all out, didn't they? Look at these floors, look at the floors. I can literally see myself in them. They're that shiny. And if we're talking quality of life, they've made some big changes with this one, introducing the partner ring system that allows you to quickly change your partner, which you'll be doing a lot of the time in this game with just one button. Previously, you'd have to open a menu, go over a bit, choose the partner, exit the menu. Who's got time for that? And speaking of saving time, the only unanimous complaint from fans of the OG Thousand Year Door was also addressed in this version. To minimize the amount of backtracking, a brand new warp pipe room was added to make sure players can revisit previously cleared chapters effortlessly, which will make one segment in particular, towards the end of the game, much more manageable. And it's not just that one room, there's just warp pipes all over the game. For some things, I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of a pain in the butt. They took care of that. That's crazy. The quality of life in this game is huge, like no other game I've ever played. When I heard Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door would be receiving a remake for Nintendo Switch, I was happy, of course, but I've already played the original. In fact, I've played it so much, every screen in this game, every badge, effect, the majority of the dialogue, especially the witty quips, have been memorized. But Nintendo is underselling how grand of a release this truly is. It's an effortlessly enjoyable RPG that I can't recommend enough. From a charming cast to a series of pleasant brain teasers accompanying its dungeons and bombastic boss fights with the best Mario music in years. Sometimes things do live up to the hype, and sometimes games can exceed expectations you didn't even have. This is a glowing success for Nintendo, and RPG fans around the globe should be celebrating Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door for Nintendo Switch. I'm even bold enough to say if you're not an RPG fan, this game could make you one. I cannot even think of one thing I disliked about this return to Rogue Board. So yeah, the game's just as good as I remember, and even better now. So buy the game and play it. You owe it to yourself.